Welcome. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. And we are,
Amen.
Amen.
thank you. So we are continuing, of course, these laws regarding damages and injury, etc., and what's involved there. So we're on a new idea here. Ki yignov ish shor or seh. If a man should steal an ox or a sheep, utvacho, and slaughters it, or mecharo, or sells it, chamisha bakar, 5 cattle, lots of Torah on this, Yishalem, he shall pay back tachat hashor, in the place of the ox he'd stolen, va'arba'atzon tachat haseh, and 4 sheep in the place of the sheep. Interesting, right? 5 oxen for an ox being stolen, and 4 sheep in for the fact that a sheep was stolen. And of course, the fact that there's a discrepancy in the compensation is subject to some discussion. So let's take a look. Chamisha vakar. So it gets right into it. 5 cattle. Amar Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, said Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, Chas hamakom, the Almighty takes pity, shows mercy, al kvodam shel briot, for the honor of his creatures, of his creatures. Sure, in a case of an ox, sheholech baregel, that goes on its legs, it walks, goes, velo nitpazeh bo ganav lenos'o, and the thief does not have to have a sense of humiliation because he has to carry the ox on his shoulders, leshalem chamesh. He has to pay 5 oxen. Seh, but with a sheep, shenos'o al ktefo, which he has to carry on his shoulders, leshalem dalet. He only has to pay 4. Because he felt a sense of humiliation in the fact that when he carried off the sheep, he had to carry it on his shoulders. Again, an incredible example of a seeking out equity. And my thought, as I believe I've already mentioned, behind this as well, other than giving us a little bit of insight into in how the Torah wants to describe divine justice, is the idea that if, in fact, we do treat these cases in an equitable kind of way, there's a better chance of both sides feeling a sense of fairness, that they were treated fairly, as opposed to strict justice. There's another interpretation. Amar Rabbi Meir, said Rabbi Meir, Bo Ur'e Kama Gedola Kocha Shel Melacha. So this is a great drush to give for Labor Day. So he says, come and see just how great the power of melacha, of labor, is. Sure, an ox, shebatlo mi melachto, an ox which this person has now prevented from doing its work, because of course the ox was the original tractor, right? Mishalem chamesh, he has to pay 5. Se, on the other hand, a sheep, shelo b'talo mi melachto, which he has not prevented from doing its labor, hasn't prevented it. Sheep were not used to plow, etc. Arba, that he only has to pay 4. Tachat hashor, tachat haseh, So underneath the ox and underneath the sheep, shna. Okay, let's make sure we read it. Shna'an hakatuv. The scripture has made a distinction between the two of them, between an ox and a sheep. Lomar, this tells you, she'ein midat tashlume arba v'chamisha. The reason why Scripture has taken them out to be specific is to teach you that this value of compensation of 4 and 5, noheget ella b'shor v'seh bilvad. This particular notion of 4 and 5 only operates regarding an ox or a sheep specifically. And this is part of the one of the principles of interpretation, because there's a general principle of compensation, and then the scripture delineates specifically an ox and a sheep. When it does that, it means it only applies to an ox and a sheep as opposed to any other animal in this case. New chapter. Im b'machteret yimatzeh. Again, there's going to be tons of interpretation here. Haganav, the thief, v'huka v'met, and he was hit and died. Ein lo damim. There is no compensation for that. If he is, and what's a machteret? So it has to do, Rashi's going to explain this to us, right? In the machteret, if a thief is discovered, you might say, is discovered in a machteret. What's a machteret? Keshahaya choter et habayit. This has to do with a situation where the thief is digging underneath the wall of a house in order to accomplish his theft. So he's digging secretly to get into the house, and this happened. He got smacked, or the owner was trying to protect himself and did it in such a way that the thief was killed. So it says Kishaya Choter et Habayit, when he was digging under the house. Well, the subject of tunneling is an interesting subject, especially these days. Ein lo damim. There is no money involved. Ein zo ritzicha. This is not considered murder. When the owner or the person in the house, whose property it is, winds up killing the thief, in this case, it is not considered murder. Hare hu kamet mi'ikaor. That is, that legally he's considered to already be dead. That when you do something like this, I'm going to guess, that you're taking your life into your hands. You're knowingly taking your life into your own hands, and it's as if you're already considered dead. Kan limedetcha Torah. Here, the Torah is teaching you, imba lehargacha. This is the principle, that if somebody comes to kill you, hashkem lehargo, you can go ahead of him before he's able to accomplish the killing of you. You can kill him first. Bezeh lahargacha ba, and it's understood that because that he's doing it in this particular way, that he's coming to kill you. Shahare yodehu, because this thief already knows, she'ein adam ma'amid atzmo, that no individual is going to set himself up, vero'eh shenotlin mamono, and sees that someone is taking his property, b'fanav, right in front of him, v'shotek, and doesn't do anything. Lefichach almanat kain, and for this reason, in other words, he knows that if somebody comes to perform an act in front of you, you're not going to just stand idly by and let it happen. You're going to do something to defend your property, right? So lefichach, and for this reason, almanat kain, he came in other words, came to kill you first and then take your property. She'im ya'amud bal hamamon kenegdo yahargenu. That the idea is that he is coming. The legal assumption is that that if the owner Baal Hamamon, the owner of this property, should try to resist him, Ya'amod kenegdo, should stand against him, Yahargenu, he's going to kill him. So it's hard to just leave this standing just the way it is right now, but that's at least a beginning of understanding what's going on here. That this principle, that you, in a circumstance where someone wants to take your life, where it's clear that someone wants to kill you, you can kill them first, and you will not be considered a murderer. Im zacha hashemesh alav. If, however, the sun has shone upon him, right? So at least on the pshat level, right? The sun has come up. Damim lo. Then his life, then there is, literally it means there is blood for him. Shalem yishalem, he shall certainly be compensated. Im ein lo, right? And so we'll see what this means. Im ein lo, if he doesn't have it, in other words, if he doesn't have money to pay for his theft, v'nimkar b'nei, he is sold for his theft. So before I go back to make sure I've been translating this appropriately, this is the origin of understanding a situation that we read at the very beginning of this Parsha Mishpatim, where it talks about a Hebrew servant, a Hebrew slave. And the situation there is someone who was sold by a court. He entered this service to pay for his theft. That's the situation that the Torah is talking about there. So let's take a look here. So it could be, we'll take a look at the Rashi, but what it's saying here is if he is simply coming to perform an act of theft, then in that case, he has to compensate for the theft. That's how this is to be understood. But let's take a look at the Rashi here. In Zarcha Hashemesh Alav, if the sun has risen over him, and this is based on the Mechilta, right? That's the halachic midrash, the Sanhedrin, and the Sanhedrin and tractate Sanhedrin. Ein zeh, in other words, this is not the other than kamin mashal. This needs to be understood metaphorically. Im barur lecha, and so what it means is if it is clear to you, hadavar, the matter, sheyesh lo shalom imach, that he has no intention of killing you, he is only intending to steal from you. So im zarcha hashemesh means if it is clear as the sun, right, clear as day, that he is not trying to hurt you, keshemesh hazeh, just like this sun, shahu shalom ba'olam. It's so interesting, right? And that brings peace to the world is how they're understanding this. Kach pashut pshot lecha. This is the way you need to understand this sentence. She'eno ba laharog, but that he is not, this thief is not coming to kill. In other words, that if he's discovered, he will kill you. He will try to kill you. So that's the idea of the tunneling. In other words, he's trying to do it so that he can avoid killing you, but if you discover him, he will kill you. So here it's clear that he is not coming to kill you. Afilu ya'amod bal ha'amon, even if the owner of the property or the owner of the money, ya'amod kenegdo, resists him. Kagon, and we consider this an example of this. Av hachoter, this is a father who is undermining the house, right? Digging under the house, lignov mamon haben, in order to steal the money of his son. Beyadua, we can assume, right? It's clear, Shirachamei Ha'av, that the mercy, the sense of mercy of the father, or even the love of the father, al haben, is over the son. Ve'enor ba al iskei nefashot, and he's not coming to wind up committing a capital offense. So that's the situation mentioned here, expressed in the way it's expressed, but to be understood metaphorically, that in a case of armed robbery, right? That's how we would talk about it, right? That if it's armed robbery, then it's clear that the thief intends, or the robber intends, to kill anyone preventing him from accomplishing his mission, as opposed to unarmed robbery. So in that case, of course, there's compensation. But in the case of armed robbery, that is a potentially capital offense. Okay. Damim lo, right? Money for him. Okay. Kachai hu chashuv. He is considered to be a living human being. He's not originally considered dead, right, as we mentioned. Uritzicha he, and so it's going to be considered murder im yehargenu bal habayit, if in fact the owner of the house kills such a thief. The owner is now considered to have committed murder. So again, the subtleties of the Torah and the seriousness of the law and the intention of the law being applied. Shalem yishalem, he shall certainly pay. Haganav mamon, the thief shall pay mamon sheganav, the money he has stolen. Ve'eno chayav mita, however, he is not deserving of death. A thief is not thievery, is not even unarmed robbery, is not considered a capital offense. The unculus kirgame im ena de sahadaya. And when it came to Onkelos, the Aramaic translator, he translates it in the Targum with regards to Imzarcha Hashemesh, if the sun has risen or something, and he says, if there are witnesses, Ena de Sahadia Nafalt Aloi, if there are in fact witnesses to what is going on. Lakach lo sha'a acheret lomar. So it sounds to me that, let me make sure I have, let's take a look at the Onkelos right now, right? To see exactly so. All right, let's see. Im ena da sahadaya nafalat alohi, there it is. Let's keep going here. Damimlo, yeah, Dama lay, right? So this part is, let me find it here. So Alohi is the end of the quote of Onkelos. So lakach lo sha'a acheret. So it sounds to me that it literally means he took a different moment, lomar, to say, she'im matz'uhu edim, right? Kodem sheba bal habayit, that if there were witnesses who saw him committing the theft before the owner of the property came, uvekesheba bal habayit, and that when the owner of the property arrived, negdo, to oppose him, hitrubo, they forewarned him, shelo yehargenu, that the owner of the property should not kill him. Damim, let's keep going. Damim lo, right? That means, so literally it's going to mean, I believe they're saying in this case that there is compensation, or at least he has to provide compensation. And this is how Rashi's explaining it. Chayav alav im hargo. He will in fact be culpable. The owner of the house will be culpable if he killed him. Sheme'achar sheyesh ro'im lo, because after, in a case where there are people who see what's happening, ein haganav hazeh ba al iskei nefashot, it becomes established, because this is happening in the open, in this sense, that the assumption is that this thief, isn't coming to kill him. Velo, so consequently, velo yaharog et baal hamamon, and that he won't kill, in fact, the owner of the property. So I am going to stop this. Let me see if I can do this. Pause. Let's see if I can pause the share. Moment. And let me. Okay, so that's obviously Onkelos is introducing a different understanding of this particular passage, but it's clear that the Torah wants, in terms of its seeking equity and fairness, to consider the situation going on here and what the presumption is regarding the thief's intention and the owners not being given permission to protect his property by simply killing the thief. And that's, of course, something that you might call progressive, because certainly there are places where someone who is being robbed, or who catches a thief on his property, is considered absolved if he kills the thief. So the Torah is clear about the value of human life, etc., even in the midst of committing a crime. Going on. Timatze beyado hagneva. If the theft is found in his hands, and we're going to figure that we're talking about, if we'll see how Rashi is going to introduce this. In other words, we know an item was stolen, and we find this within in the thief's possession. Mishor ad chamor ad seh chayim, whether it be an ox or a donkey or a sheep, alive. So in other words, he's stolen this, they are on his property, but they are still alive. So obviously they can be returned to the original owner. Shnayim, but there's still a fine for having, committed this crime. What's the fine? That's the question. Shnayim, 2 times Yishalem. He has to pay twice the value of what he has stolen, which is, of course, not so much compensation, but because he can return the original object, but is now a fine for having committed the crime. Let's take a look at Rashi on this. Im himatze timatze beyado. So what this means is birshuto, on his property, shelo tavach velo machar, because in this case he did not slaughter or sell the animal. In the previous case, remember, we had talked about someone who steals an animal and sells it or kills it. And there was, right, the compensation of 4 and 5 for an ox and a sheep, or a sheep and an ox, I guess I should say. And clearly there is a higher level of compensation because you can't return the original property. Let's keep going. Mishor ad chamor, etc., from an ox to a donkey. And he says, Kol davar bichlal tashlume kefel. So it says anything in this situation comes under the principle of double, of having to pay back double. Ben sheyesh bo ruach chayim, whether it is a living animal, ben she'ein bo ruach chayim, or whether it is not a living thing. Sha'arei ne'emar makom acher, and because in fact it's stated in another place, al se, al salma, al kol aveda. In talking about a situation like this, it says regarding a sheep or a article of clothing or on anything that was lost, etc. Yeshalem shnaim l're'ehu. He needs to pay double to his neighbor. Chayim shnaim. If it is alive, he has to pay twice. Yeshalem. V'lo yishalem lo meitim. And he does not give him the dead animal, ela chayim, but they have to be living, or demei chayim, or the value of a living animal. And we will stop here for this year. Very good.